Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today we are heading back to 2007 when the whole world was becoming obsessed with taking the internet with you wherever you go. It's also the same year that the iPhone was released, as well as the HTC Advantage, which we've looked at in previous videos. So there were already plenty of options for using the internet while on the go. At the time, all the options for getting on the internet on the go had one common problem: very expensive data plans. Enter Datawind and the Pocket Surfer 2. A huge thanks goes to Mark Stevenson for donating this to the channel, along with an HP Mini, and without whom I couldn't make this video. I also need to give a big shout out to Curty Unlisted, Rich's Random Retro Reviews, and Stephen Flanagan for their supers on my last video on the HTC Shift, which was kindly lent to me by Chris Groom. And if you've not seen that video, I'll pop a link below so you can check it out after you've finished watching this one. Okay, let's get into it. So let's take a look at the box itself. Of course, we've got a nice little picture of the device itself. We can surf the web anywhere, social networking, access to webmail, and of course, we've got our 1,200 minutes free every month. A year is included. We, of course, can enjoy the freedom of super fast internet access anywhere, and there are no contracts. We get 20 hours free every month to get on the web, get email, read the news, check out Facebook and Bebo, buy, sell on eBay, or bet online. This brings the desktop experience to the palm of your hand, and that's because you can actually do remote desktop access to your home PC using some of the software included on the CD in here. Flipping it over and you'll see that actually for $5.99 a month you can have unlimited usage, or you can pay a one-off payment of £40 for the full year, allowing you to have your 1,200 minutes a month. Of course, data roaming is not included. Heading to the back, let's have a little look at what we've got. Secure online banking. Of course, I'm not sure about that because it's going through Datawind servers. Instant messaging, very handy. News, sport, and weather. So it gives us the size and weight, 174 grams, 152 by 75 by 15 millimeters, so it's very small. Quad band, built-in SIM card, high performance antenna, so hopefully that means we'll get good signal. Mini USB charging, trans-reflective widescreen LCD, 640 by 240, so same display resolution as a standard handheld PC. It's got a rechargeable battery built in. Essentially, it boasts broadband speeds, even though you're on a 2G network. Full QWERTY backlit keyboard, and it is cool as the keyboard. I'll show you when we get it open. 4 hours of usage on a single charge, or 4 days standby, and of course there's no monthly payment in that first year. Then we've got a bit up here about why we might want it. Here we've got a list of box content, carry pouch, main charger, blah blah blah, and that's about it. So let's open it up. We'll take the sleeve off, open the box, ta-da! And actually everything's in here as it would have been originally. So we've got our charger. So this is a mini USB, and you'll see they've shaved down the top bit. So you can't use your regular mini USBs because it'll be too fat to plug in, but it still works. Then we've got a couple of quick start guides for the keys, and that is handy because there's a whole bunch of special keys down the side, and of course you need to know how to access functions. Here is the device itself. It is very small. We'll have a proper look at that in a moment. It comes with this lovely carry pouch. It feels like it's made of a microfiber, and it's got a little toggle drawstring. And then down at the bottom, under the tray, I've got the CD, and this contains the user manual. It also contains the remote desktop software and a few other bits and bobs. So we'll pop those out of the way. And let's look at the Pocket Surfer itself. So by way of a size comparison, this is my Janara 728. So this is very small in comparison. You can see it's significantly neater and massively thinner as well. I mean, it's nearly half the thickness. So yeah, it's a very slim build. On the top of here, we've got these 3 indicators. One is for power, one is for email notifications, and one is for your connection status. On the back, we've just got the hinge. On this side, there is nothing. And then on the other side, we've got these 2 flaps. This one doesn't do anything, but I think it was supposed to be so you could add a micro SD at some later date or later iteration. And then here, this is the charging port, if it'll open, for that mini USB. Popping it down and opening it up. So this was a little bit sticky. It had a rubberized coating, so it's gone a bit funny. But you can see we've got this single piece sprung steel keyboard. It's actually surprisingly easy to use. By 2007, 3G was already widespread, offering megabit connections. So why would you want a 2G connection? The Pocket Surfer 2 actually achieved shorter load times for web pages than conventional 3G devices, thanks to proprietary compression technology by Datawind. So instead of sending your request direct to an ISP, you would instead send your request to Datawind's own servers. They would download it, compress it, and send it to you. This achieved very fast page loading times of between 7 and 9 seconds for small pages, where on a 3G connection it would actually take you quite a bit longer. Living in an era of 5G as we do now, it is difficult to understand that web pages used to take a really long time to load, even though they were very simple. So I found this video by Datawind, so it may be a little bit biased, which shows you the difference in load time between the Datawind Pocket Surfer 2 and HTC and the original iPhone. There is one massive drawback of doing this, and that is that everything you fill in, everything you search for, and everything you look at online goes through Datawind servers. Now, of course, they promised privacy, but who knows how much privacy there actually was. Having said that, in 2007, I don't think any of us really cared about internet privacy like we do now. Let's actually power it on. Just give it a second. There we go. So here we are on the home page. So I'm not going to be able to show you loads of things because we're not going to find any connection for the network. And unfortunately, there's no Wi-Fi on here as it does rely on that compression from the servers in Canada. Down this side, we've got a few buttons. This is the zoom button. If you press it, it jumps between 2 levels of zoom. You can change that zoom level by holding it and pressing the up or down key, and this will zoom in and out accordingly. Next, we've got the home button. That takes you to this page, which is the home. Then we have an email button, a scroll lock to make it easier to move up and down on a web page, a refresh. Then we've got a backwards and forwards, an escape button, and here's the brightness and contrast. Pressing and holding this brings up this menu. Moving left and right adjusts the contrast. And then moving up and down adjusts the brightness. On maximum brightness, it is actually very bright. The colours are not vivid, but the screen is bright. And then moving down, obviously, brings us back to a normal brightness. This is a trans-reflective screen, and therefore you can see it in even direct sunlight. After that, we've got favourites. Then we've got the search, this little magnifier. This is a map button, which will connect to an online map, or would have done. Then we've got the close pop-up, so this closes anything that's already up. We've got a tab key, caps lock, of course. Then we've got go, which just brings up this green box, and then you can type in whatever you want. Press enter, and it'll try and search for it. It's not going to achieve it. Down at the bottom, we've got a little arrow key that is mimicked in the middle of this circle, and this circle is used for directing your little mouse cursor around, and then pressing the arrow in the middle, or this one, is like a left click. To look at your settings for the device, you press Shift and Escape, and it brings up this little box, and then you use your arrow key to move around to whatever it is you want to change. So if we go to this one, you can see we can change the settings for the cover logo, the keyboard. Oh, I've not shown you the cover logo. Check out that. It lights up. Isn't that cool? Yeah, it is. Anyway, you can change the settings for that so it's off or always on or whatever you choose. You've got language, general, power, which of course allows you to get it to shut down after a bit or go to sleep. And then you can set whether the keypad stays lit or not. In this light, you can't really tell, but the keypad is illuminated. Let me just dim the light so you can see. So it's got this really cool blue glow, and I have to say, I do think it's a really nice keyboard. And the way they've shaped the keys in that single piece of metal makes it look a bit alien in design. Then we've got some language settings, general settings, and system settings, and a status. So this just tells you what your keys are doing and when you are connected. So we'll get rid of those. Sadly, there's not a lot else I can show you on the device itself because we can no longer connect it to a network, and everything about it is designed to be used online. So while the Pocket Surfer was primarily designed for surfing the internet and has no built-in PDA functions, it does have some other uses, or rather before the servers were shut down, it had some other uses. In the accompanying manual, it discusses using Yahoo Calendar as a free way of adding a diary to your Pocket Surfer. It also suggests signing up for free online storage so you can have 25 gigs of storage in the cloud, because of course there's no actual storage on here. It also has a dedicated button for maps, and of course those maps are online maps, so you could use it for navigation. And on top of all of that, the manual also suggests you sign up to this website so you can use Office on the go. Putting all of that together with the online storage, and actually what you've got is Chromebook in 2007 that will fit in your pocket. So as long as all of those data requirements will fit in your 1,200 minutes of allowance, you are onto a winner. So what's even in here? Well, the box tells us it's running Windows Mobile 5, but honestly, that's about as far as it gets. There's no information about the CPU running, how much RAM it's got, or whether there's any additional internal storage. Well, thanks to Chris's Tech Shed, I can show you exactly what's in here, as he's done a teardown and looked at the various chips inside. He's also kindly given his permission for me to use clips from that video. So, let's have a look at what's actually in here.
What we've got here, we've got a SIM card tray, and it's unusual because this has an orange SIM card in it.
During the teardown, we find that his Pocket Surfer has an orange SIM card in it, and likely all the UK ones do too. This obviously makes sense. If you use a single mobile provider, then you're obviously going to get bulk deals on your data, and that low-cost data is the selling point of this device. For those of you who are interested in the UK market, Orange merged with T-Mobile back in 2010. T-Mobile then became EE in 2012, so Orange doesn't really exist anymore, and any Orange locked phones will no longer work. What I do find interesting about the data arrangement is it talks about time as opposed to megabytes. So it would make sense to me that you would simply go online, download all the web pages you're interested in a morning as quickly as possible, and then simply browse offline after that.
Now we've got two RAM chips here. Again, I've looked these up, and these are two 16 megabyte memory chips. So these are the RAM, so you've got 32 megs of RAM and 16 megs of ROM effectively.
Now actually the minimum spec for Windows Mobile 5 is 64 megabytes, but bear in mind, we're pretty much just running a web browser here, so we don't need that much RAM. So other than a small cache, we're not going to keep any information on the handheld itself. But to be clear, in 2007, most Windows mobile devices were shipping with 128 megs of RAM, so this really is a very stripped down device.
It is, as I assumed, it is an ARM-based processor. It's a Sharp LH79524, which I've looked it up on Google. And what we've got, it's a 70 megahertz ARM-based processor.
Finally, the CPU in here is running at a mere 70 megahertz. Somebody called 1998 and tell them that we've stolen the CPUs, such as this one. This is one of the original palm-sized PCs, the Philips Nino, and this is running a 75 megahertz CPU. So why on earth are we using a 70 megahertz CPU in 2007? Well, again, I think the answer to that lies in the fact that this is basically a glorified web browser and nothing else. And again, just bear in mind that most Windows 5 mobile devices run as a minimum a 300 megahertz CPU. It's also worth noting that the system on a chip in here does have a built-in controller for a touchscreen driver, which would have been a really nice feature if they were going to continue in this line. The Pocket Surfer 2 was sufficiently successful that Datawind went on to make a 3 and 4, both based on the Android operating system. In addition, it also made some netbooks. Yes, you remember those, Windows CE or Linux-powered little computers with often 4 gigs of storage and barely any RAM. However, with the steep take-up of smartphones in the mid-2000s, over 700 million were sold between 2007 and 2010. It was clear that a dedicated mobile internet device was no longer something people were looking for. Instead, they wanted it integrated into a single handheld, the mobile phone. For those of you with a Datawind Pocket Surfer, the final nail in the coffin came in 2019 as they began a server shutdown, with Datawind declaring bankruptcy and shutting off its final servers in 2021. Sadly, because there's no Wi-Fi on here and it relies on those servers for that dedicated compression algorithm, this is essentially just e-waste. Unless, of course, we could reflash it with a different version of Windows Mobile. Yes, I'm currently in the rabbit hole of doing that on the HTC Shift, and so looked into doing it on here. However, there's a couple of obstacles in the way. One of them being this.
Now, I've had to look very carefully at these tracks, and this is primarily simply for charging. There's no data connection. The data pin's not actually connected.
So unless I can change it to a data line, then there's no way to connect this to a computer and reflash it. That in itself is a crying shame, because this is a really good size, and with the right tools on it, could have been an excellent PDA. Internet access became a bit of a must-have in those mid-2000s. There were a number of devices similar to the Pocket Surfer that sprang up. We've had a quick look at the Nokia 770, and at some point I'll do a more detailed review. The advantage of the 770 over this is that it relied on Wi-Fi, not a proprietary compression system over a mobile network. So those still work and can be connected to the internet and used. For the general public, being able to connect to the internet anywhere was still quite a novelty in 2007, and the data costs that were associated with that novelty were sufficiently high that for most of us, we just didn't really bother. The use of that compression technology meant that this could compete with 3G devices quite easily, the downside being the reliance on those servers, which have since shut down. If any of you have actually managed to reflash this with something else, please pop a comment below. I would absolutely love to try and follow that up, as this is such a nice sized device. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Massive shout out again to Mark Stevenson for sending me this. Really appreciate it. It is a cool bit of tech, and such a shame that we can't get it working today. Huge thanks goes to all the viewers, subscribers, and of course the members and supers who directly support the channel. And I have a Nokia 9300 on its way, thanks directly to that support. As always, my name's Hugh. This is Handheld Computing. Thanks for watching.